Most people never question what's actually inside the sausages they throw into a frying pan. But behind the branding and the promises of quality British pork, some supermarket sausage brands are quietly pushing out products that are bulked out, over-processed, and made using unbelievably cheap ingredients. After looking into the sourcing, manufacturing, and ingredient lists behind these sausages, these are the 7 worst offenders, the ones you should avoid at all costs. Stick around to the end to see which sausages you should buy. Starting off with number 7, Meadowbrook Grillers. Meadowbrook Grillers rely almost completely on illusion. Their packaging uses the classic British supermarket trick, a drawing of rolling fields, a fake farmhouse, wooden fencing, and a rural color palette that screams tradition. But the truth is far from traditional. The pork content in Meadowbrook Grillers often sits just below 50%, and the remaining half is made up of water, soy protein, rusk, stabilizers, and cellulose. That cellulose is used to bulk out the mixture because the actual meat content is so low that the sausages would fall apart without it. Their meat sourcing is just as murky. Instead of pork from British farms, the trimmings used for these sausages come from mixed European suppliers. The raw material is frozen, thawed, blended, reformed, and processed again before it ever reaches UK packaging. The flavor of a Meadowbrook Griller sausage doesn't come from pork. It comes from added enhancers. Salt levels are high, smoke flavoring is added to mimic real browning, and pork seasoning masks the fact that the product is basically a padded-out mixture built for cost savings, not taste. The brand depends entirely on the idea that shoppers won't flip the box over, because on the back, in tiny print, you'll usually find the phrase, "packed in the UK." 6. Oak Valley Value Bangers. Oak Valley is the bottom-of-the-barrel range for people trying to save money, but the shocking reality is that you're not saving anything long-term by eating these sausages. Their production process is one of the cheapest in the supermarket industry. The so-called pork in these sausages is actually a mechanically processed paste made from trimmings that would never make it into a standard pork joint. Think fat scraps, connective tissue, skin fragments, sinew, and the leftovers scraped from industrial cutting lines. To hold this mass together, manufacturers rely on phosphates, artificial emulsifiers, and binding flours. Without them, Oak Valley sausages would literally collapse in the pan. When heated, they ooze water because nearly a quarter of the weight comes from moisture whipped into the mixture. The flavor profile is engineered in a manufacturing plant, not a kitchen. Artificial sage, artificial pepper, artificial smoke. Everything is synthetic. The cheapness shows in every aspect: texture, smell, color, and aftertaste. 5. Ridge and Rindle Thick Cuts. Ridge and Rindle present themselves as a premium butcher-style sausage, thick, heavy, farmhouse branded. But the illusion falls apart the moment you look into what actually goes into them. For starters, the thick texture comes not from quality pork, but from synthetic collagen casings and a dense interior padded with preservatives to extend shelf life far beyond normal pork standards. These sausages can sit in a supermarket fridge for weeks without changing color because they are chemically protected to prevent spoilage. The meat itself is heavily processed. Pork trimmings are ground extremely fine and pre-treated with stabilizers so the sausage keeps its shape. When you cut into one, that unnatural bounce or rubbery texture comes not from real sausage skin or natural casing, but from the collagen tubes the meat is pumped into by the kilometer. Consumers regularly describe Ridge and Rindle sausages as having a bouncy or plastic bite. That's because very little about them behaves like real sausage meat. 4. Pennywell Pantry Sausages. At first glance, Pennywell Pantry sausages look rustic. The packaging implies tradition, small batch craftsmanship, and countryside farming. But once again, the truth is industrial and cheap. Pennywell sausages use imported frozen pork that often sits in storage far longer than most people would be comfortable with. The meat is then blended with water until the moisture content becomes one of the defining ingredients. Long storage, multiple freezing cycles, and aggressive processing take their toll, which is why the sausages turn gray so easily when cooked. Strong pepper, thyme, and herb seasoning mix is added not to complement the pork but to hide its shortcomings. The texture is soft, slightly mushy, and sometimes even crumbly, a result of overprocessing and excessive water retention. Consumers expecting a firm, meaty sausage are left with something that feels flimsy and artificially flavored. 3. Golden Shire. Breakfast links. Golden Shire is one of the most inconsistent sausage brands in UK supermarkets. Not inconsistent in flavor, inconsistent in the actual meat they use. The company shifts between multiple suppliers across Europe, purchasing pork wherever it's cheapest. That means one batch might be fattier, one might be watery, and another might feel completely different in texture due to processing variations abroad. This inconsistency causes huge swings in the final product. Some packs of Golden Shire sausages resemble minced pork, others resemble a paste. The latter is often compared to baby food because the meat is processed so finely it loses all texture. The casings are synthetic, the color is often dull, and the flavor varies wildly because the raw materials vary wildly. Golden Shire produces sausages based on cost, not consistency, and certainly not quality. 2. Hearth and Home family sausages. These are the sausages you'll see stacked in huge freezer bags, marketed aggressively as great value. But Hearth and Home sausages represent some of the weakest meat content in the entire supermarket system. Their formula heavily relies on fillers, starches, gums, rusk, and any bulking agent cheap enough to keep costs down. Meat content can sit shockingly close to the legal minimum, meaning you're barely getting a pork product at all. Flavor enhancers do the real work here. Hearth and Home sausages depend on artificial smoke, E-number seasonings, and powdered pork flavor designed to trick your taste buds into thinking the meat tastes stronger than it does. When cooking, they shrink excessively and release water because so much of their mass is liquid and binding agents. The texture becomes spongy rather than firm, and the interior often looks uniform and pale, a sign of heavily processed meat. 1. Fairfield's Finest 10-pack. Fairfield's Finest earns the #1 spot for one simple reason. They represent the lowest standard of sausage still broadly sold in the UK. Everything about these sausages is built around cost reduction. Meat content is extremely low, filler content is extremely high, and water is whipped into the mixture until the sausages feel almost airy when uncooked. When they hit the frying pan, they often shrink into thin rubbery tubes floating in a puddle of brown liquid. Even discount retailers have begun phasing them out because the complaints have been so consistent: strange aftertaste, unpleasant texture, and sausages that simply don't behave like sausages when cooked. Now, here are the sausages you should buy. After ripping apart the worst offenders, here are 2 actually good sausages made with proper meat, natural casings, and minimal additives. 1. Alderwood Heritage Pork. Sausages. These are made from pasture-raised British pork with natural casings and no fillers. The high meat content gives a proper, firm texture and real flavor. You taste pork, not seasoning. 2. Briarfield Traditional Butcher's Links. A butcher-grade sausage made with coarse-cut pork shoulder, natural skins, and simple seasoning. No artificial smoke, no emulsifiers, no bulk starches, just real sausage craftsmanship.